Chair now recognizes the committee's energy expert, Representative Fallon from Texas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Granholm, when were you confirmed, roughly month and year?
In February
21, right after the administration started. So I was a little bit concerned when I saw the news report that in November of 21, you were asked how many barrels of oil the U.S. consumes daily, and you didn't know at the time. You remember that?
I remember.
Okay. So chance of redemption. How many barrels of oil do we consume every day?
We consume about, well, the world does 100. We do about 20. Again, these are ballparks.
Yeah, I just saw it on your website. It was on 102 and 22. So the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, we were talking about that before, founded, I believe it was 1975. And do you know at the height, and I think one of my colleagues just asked you, at the height of the prior administration, what the number was?
It was, well, I can tell you that the maximum is about 720.
Right. And under the Trump administration, at one point, it was at 695 million barrels. When you all took office, do you have any idea where it was at?
What was it at?
I believe it was 638. And today it's at, you just said 365, I think?
365.
Okay. So it's a 42% reduction. And you testified before I came into the committee that it was the Ukrainian war had something to do with the sale. That wasn't accurate because 50 million barrels was sold in November of 21 before the invasion. And then you just said, when I did get here, that it was congressionally mandated, but according to the Congressional Research Service, the congressionally mandated is only a fraction of that 270 million. Are you aware of that?
There was 140 million in congressionally mandated sales that we have canceled to be able to get back. And then there's another 99 million that is teed up to go.
But that congressionally mandated, some of that was canceled was for FY 24 to 27, was it not?
Right, yeah, it's multiple years.
So I'm talking about what actually has physically happened. We have sold 270 million barrels. That was not, those 270 million barrels were not, the majority of that was not congressionally mandated sales.
Well, because we've canceled, because we've ended up canceling.
But
my point is,
we're going around in circles, but that cancellation was from sales that would have occurred in the future, not what has already happened in the past.
Correct.
So if it wasn't Ukraine and it wasn't congressionally mandated.
It was Ukraine. 180 million barrels were from the Ukraine war, the war in Ukraine.
No, you did it after they happened to have invaded, but that wasn't the reason. I think the reason was because you were trying to depress the price of gasoline at the pump.
There was a constriction on the global market.
Excuse me, I'm reclaiming my time. I'm not going to be interrupting you. It was before the midterm elections in November. Because this, in 1975, was designed for, act of God, natural disaster, national emergency, time of war, none of which has occurred in this country, and 270 million barrels were sold inexplicably. And it's, by the way, I don't think that, was it your testimony that we have the largest reserve, strategic petroleum reserve in the world?
Yeah.
Not China?
We have the largest in the world. That's publicly made available.
Okay, so the Chinese don't have a billion barrels in reserve?
They don't publicly report what they have.
Okay, because that's what the experts believe that is. So we have a fraction of what they have.
Well, I don't know what they have.
Okay. So over the past 20 years, has the United States increased or decreased our carbon footprint?
Over the past
20 years, 2020.
Yes, we've decreased.
We decreased it by about 20%. Has China increased or decreased?
They've increased, sir.
Increased by? You have any idea?
I don't know their percentage.
I'm talking Energy 101. I'm not going to get complicated.
Oh, I don't have the percentage in front of me.
Triple, for about 300%. So we've done exceptionally well. So would you agree that the United States has a greater commitment to protecting the environment than, let's say, China?
I think we have a greater commitment to protecting the environment than China, yes.
Yeah, I think that's manifestly obvious considering what they've done in the last 25 years or so. And incidentally, for the record, our economy is larger than theirs, and yet they are far more apt to, unfortunately, ignore their responsibilities for the environment. Do you think that we have a greater commitment to protect the environment than, let's say, Venezuela?
I think we have a greater commitment to protecting the environment, yes.
Yeah, and gutter as well?
Yes.
Okay, because we have a strong environmental lobby. We have a rule of law. None of those countries have those kinds of things. So it perplexes me that we would put essentially a ban, people call it a pause, on liquefied natural gas exports, and we're just giving a gift to one of the most evil dictators in the world, Vladimir Putin.
We are not giving a gift to Vladimir Putin. We are pausing for months while we update a study, and it will resume after that update happens.
Oh, I bet you it's going to resume magically right after the November elections, but be that as it may, I've talked to prime ministers and foreign ministers in Europe, and they're not happy with this at all. I hope that you talk to the same people.
I have talked to them, and
Chairman, I
they've
yield back.
explained, and they,
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize Mr. Fry from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm actually going to pick up right where Mr. Fallon kind of left off a little bit, but I want to focus, Madam Secretary, on the companies themselves. In April of this year, Brad Crabtree testified in front of the Subcommittee on Economic Growth and Energy Policy that companies were concerned about the pause. Will this pause, in your mind, impact the planning horizons of LNG producers and exporters?
no.
No. So you would disagree with the characterization by Mr. Crabtree?
Well, he said their companies are concerned. I understand that they were concerned, but once people explain that it is a pause, that none of the existing operations are going to be affected, none of the authorized amounts, which have not even begun construction yet, have been affected, none of the construction projects that they are undertaking have been affected, it doesn't affect any of that. None of that. They can proceed apace.
Let me ask you this. How did the DOE factor in the pause on the companies and in the critical aspect? I would say, like, how did y'all weigh that on the production side for the companies?
The companies are able to produce right now. Nobody is stopping any of the companies that have authorization from proceeding. We export, we have capacity to export 14 billion cubic feet. That exists. That is not being stopped. We have authorized another 12 billion cubic feet, which are under construction. That is going forward. We have authorized up to 48 billion cubic feet, the difference of which has not even begun construction. That is not impacted by the pause. This does not impact anybody who is doing business or is in construction or even contemplating doing business. And it only will last until the first quarter of next year when we complete the analysis of what's in the public interest.
Recent reporting, Madam Secretary, from the Wall Street Journal noted that Sarah Brennan, the Associate Director at the Rockefeller Family Fund, which has a history of funding anti-fossil fuel groups, stated in an email to environmental groups that, quote, "The pause is the result of a sustained 4-year push that built upon years of opposition to gas exports by community groups and lawyers." So I would ask you, can you tell us how much advance notice was provided on the pause before it was publicly announced?
This was DOE's decision. We announced it when we announced it. We didn't provide advance notice to groups or anything. We announced it when we announced it.
Madam Secretary, has it always been the intent of the administration, the Biden administration, to enact this pause from the beginning?
I'm not aware of what the intent was inside the White House. As I say, this is the Department of Energy's evaluation and decision.
I'm going to switch gears here. Despite decarbonization policies being a key contributor to the premature retirement of fossil fuels, demand for electricity is going to continue to rise throughout the United States. My home state of South Carolina will need new generation as coal plants close or potentially close in the coming years. But without proper and realistic guidance from DOE and the EPA, there's little hope that the grid will actually be as resilient as the administration claims. Madam Secretary, the DOE signed a memorandum of understanding with the EPA to ensure grid reliability. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you believe that the MOU process can still function properly if all the entities obligated to ensure reliability say that it actually isn't achievable?
The EPA is not saying that it's not achievable.
No.
EPA
The entities are saying that it's not achievable.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said the entities who were parties to the MOU. I think the entities are concerned about whether it is doable. But our experience at Department of Energy, and we consulted with EPA on this, and our knowledge of carbon capture technology tells us that that technology is ready, and it can be installed, and it is doable.
So to me, the MOU seems in a way for the EPA to shift potential blame to the Department of Energy. Even before you testified before the Energy and Commerce Committee 3 weeks ago, at least 3 regional transmission organizations have cited premature retirement of fossil fuel resources as a growing concern with the future of America's grid stability. Couple these concerns with FERC's own forecasts of summer supply shortfalls And it's clear, I think, that we will have issues with reliability. Many experts have said that the administration's ambitious power plant and carbon capture goals aren't achievable in the desired time frame with our current technology. So who is wrong here?
The goals are achievable with current technology.
Do you think it's the experts or the EPA for whom you've already provided this MOU to implement something that is illegal or harmful to American consumers?
We are not implementing anything that's harmful to American consumers. In fact, it's helpful to America to breathe clean air and have a clean power plant. We are the experts at Department of Energy. We have 17 national labs that are working on this. We have an MOU with the EPA. We know what technology is available, and we believe it's doable.
Thank you, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.